Alright, so today for science, we are going to be working through Chapter 1, Lesson 2. You need 2 sheets before we start. You need your note sheet, Chapter 1, Lesson 2. You need your worksheet. You might be able to get a couple free answers. And you can have your books opened to Chapter 1, Lesson 2 on page 10 is where we're going to start. Once you have that, you can go ahead and press play. Yesterday we looked at why we classify organisms and why we put those organisms into groups, and that's to help organize, but also to help communicate about those organisms. Today we're going to look at a specific group of organisms called vertebrates and how we classify vertebrates. We're going to start reading in the first section, and as we're reading, we're looking for 3 characteristics of animals. Animals have certain features that together make them different from other organisms. First, animals are multicellular. They are made of more than one cell. The bears shown on this page are made of trillions of cells. So I put that right away in my note sheet under 3 characteristics of animals. I wrote that they're multicellular. Second, animals cannot make their own food. In order to get energy, animals must eat other organisms. So for the second characteristic, it's that they cannot make their own food. So plants can make their own food through photosynthesis. Animals are a lot different than that, having to get their energy from somewhere else. Third, animals can move on their own during part or all of their lives. So this slide is going to help you fill out that first part of your sheet. We're now going to read into the next column, which is vertebrate animals. Today the animal kingdom is divided into more than 30 phyla. Only one phylum, the Chordata, contains organisms that have spinal cords. One subphylum of Chordata contains animals with backbones that surround the spinal cord. These animals are called vertebrates. Backbones protect a very important set of nerves that go to the brain. The vertebrate subphylum is divided into 5 classes. The classes are mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Bison and sheep are vertebrates. What other vertebrates do you know? So looking into that, it'll help you fill in your notes. Vertebrates have backbones. We also have backbones, so right on the middle of your back where you feel that hard bone, that is your backbone, your spinal cord, or your backbones that protect your spinal cord, which is just also protects what goes straight to your brain, so it keeps your body safe. As we read through the next couple sections, you're going to have one blank already filled in for you, and you need to fill in the other thing. It's writing 2 things that you hear about each group of vertebrate. The first group that we're going to read about is mammals. I'm going to continue reading on page 11. One class of vertebrates is the mammals. All mammals share several characteristics. They breathe air with lungs and make milk for their young. Most mammals have hair or fur. Mammals are warm-blooded. That means they keep their body temperature nearly the same all the time. I'm going to keep reading the life cycle of mammals. A life cycle is a pattern of birth, growth, reproduction, and death. As they grow, animals develop and then reproduce. At the end of their life, animals die. Their offspring repeat the cycle. Before birth, most mammals start to develop inside the mother's body. At birth, young mammals usually look very much like their parents. So one thing I wrote down about mammals is that they make milk for their young. Another thing that you could write down is that they have hair or fur, that they're warm-blooded, or that they breathe air with their lungs. I'm going to keep reading the next section on reptiles. Reptiles do not look much like mammals. How would you compare and contrast the two classes, reptiles and mammals? Reptiles are similar to mammals in many ways. Their lungs and stomachs are similar. Their heads have the same basic arrangement of eyes, nose, and mouth. Reptiles are different from mammals because reptiles do not have any hair or fur cover in their bodies. Instead, they have tough, dry skin with scales. Unlike mammals, reptiles are cold-blooded. The temperature of cold-blooded animals will change as the temperature of the air or water changes. Their temperature will be higher when the air or water is warm or when they are in sunlight. Continuing to look at the life cycle of a reptile. The life cycle of a reptile is usually similar to that of a mammal. Young reptiles look very much like their parents, just as young mammals do. Unlike mammals, most reptiles lay eggs. Also, when young reptiles hatch from eggs, they are ready to live on their own. Lewis and Clark and their team describe many species of reptiles. These include the bull snake, the prairie rattlesnake, and the soft-shelled turtle. So one thing that I already put down for reptiles is that they have tough, dry skin with scales. A couple other things is that they're cold-blooded. Their life cycle is that they hatch instead of being born. And that right away they can live on their own. So if you think of babies, they couldn't live on their own right away, whereas reptiles are able to as soon as they are hatched. Continuing to read about birds. Birds make up another class of vertebrate animals. Like mammals, birds are warm-blooded. They also have many organs such as eyes, tongues, and bones similar to those of mammals. What makes birds different from all other animals? It is not their ability to fly, because many insects and bats can do that. Some birds do not fly at all. The special characteristic of birds is their feathers. Feathered wings may help birds soar with ease. Some bird wings are shaped much like airplane wings. The front edge of their wing is thick. The top surface curves to a thin back edge. While not all birds can fly, they all have beaks and they all lay hard-shelled eggs. So I didn't write anything down for birds. A couple of things that you could have said is that they're warm-blooded. They have feathers. They all have beaks and all lay hard-shelled eggs. But something interesting is that they all can't fly. And then their life cycle is that they're always fed by their parents. So if you've ever seen a bird, the adult bird actually chews maybe a worm up and then spits it into the baby's mouth. So it's not something that we would normally see or find any kind of attractive. I'm going to read through the life cycle of birds. A bird's life cycle is very similar to a reptile's life cycle. One difference is that young birds need to be fed by their parents. Reptiles are born ready to find their own food. So when you flip to page 13, there's just two different pictures. One about sea turtles being hatched from eggs, and then that other picture is just baby robins, and they're looking for their mom to feed them. That's why their mouths are open. They're looking to be fed because they can't find their own food. All right, the next one that we are going to look at is amphibians. Frogs, toads, and salamanders are amphibians. Amphibians are like reptiles in many ways. For instance, the shape of a salamander is very similar to the shape of a lizard. Amphibians are also similar to reptiles because they are cold-blooded. However, the soft, moist skin of amphibians is very different from the reptile skin, or reptile scales. Amphibian skin can absorb water and oxygen. Amphibians have a very different life cycle than that of other vertebrates. You are probably familiar with the stages of the life cycle of a frog. They hatch from eggs as tadpoles. Slowly, the tadpoles grow legs and the tail gets shorter. Soon, they develop lungs and stop getting oxygen through gills. Then they begin to live on land. As adults, frogs look nothing like they did when they were young. No other class of vertebrates changes so much during their lifetime. This kind of large change is known as metamorphosis. So something I wrote down about amphibians is that they can absorb water and oxygen through their skin. A couple other things is that their life cycle is a lot different than every other animal is because they hatch, then grow legs, then develop lungs, then live on land. So they switch from being water animals to land animals. And because of that, they look a lot different as they become adults. The last section that we're going to read through is about fish. Some mammals live in water. Some reptiles do too. But the only class of vertebrates made up only of water-living animals is the class of fish. Some fish live in freshwater, while others live in saltwater. Fish get oxygen through gills located on each side of the head. Most fish have scales, similar to a reptile. Fish also have a slimy coating that helps water flow past them. Many fish swim by bending their entire body. Others just move their fins. The life cycle of a fish is most like the life cycle of a reptile. Fish hatch from soft or jelly-coated eggs and can feed themselves right away. And on page 15, all you're going to see is the different parts of the amphibian lifestyle. So from how they go from egg to living on land. All right, going back to fish, I wrote down that they are the only vertebrates to live in the water fully. They hatch and feed themselves right away. And if you've ever felt a fish, you know that it's slimy. Their scales aren't dry, but they're slimy and kind of always feel wet. The next two pages, pages 16 and 17, talk about dinosaur fossils and comparing dinosaurs to today's animals. What I want you to do is I want you to read through pages 16 and 17. There's not any notes to fill out, but I want you to read that information for your own. When you are finished, you can then complete your worksheet for the day for lesson 2 review. Just a little bit of help with number 9. Describe how today's lizards are thought to be like and different from many dinosaurs. You're going to get some help with that on page 17, but make sure that you have something that is similar and different.